Firstly, John, how big is this a step by Seoul to have the loudspeakers removed from the demilitarized zone?
Well, that's a very good question, actually, because this is not a huge step, because what's really important about this step is that it is perfectly reversible. Now, we have to go back to how this all started. Now, back when this started, it first started out with how the North Koreans were sending out trash balloons down to the south. And this was in response to South Korean activists who were sending balloons of their own, which were anti-propaganda leaflets or USBs, mind you. But when the North Koreans started sending their trash balloons, the South Korean government responded by blaring these loudspeakers. Now, you just started out by describing them as anti-North Korean propaganda. Now, there was some of that, to be sure, but a lot of it was also just regular K-pop music and weather updates and stuff of that nature. And this has really crawled under the skin of the North Korean regime. But long story short, the Yoon administration is no longer in power, and I'm sure we'll get to that later. But now that the Yoon administration is no longer in power, the Lee administration is trying to do something which is different from his predecessors. It's different from Yoon, and it's also different from his last predecessor, Moon, as well. And the way they're different is, well, with Yoon, he was very confrontational. He was saying that Yoon's approach was North Korea is the enemy, and South Korea should treat the North as such. On the other hand, Moon was saying that the North Koreans are our kin, and we should really try to seek rapprochement in any way, shape, or form. Have summit meetings, get Donald Trump to meet with the North Korean leader, and what Moon was doing was at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Lee Jae Myung is in the middle. He's saying that he wants to take this kind of approach where it's reversible, and by having these kinds of small but reversible steps, the kind of message that he wants to send to Pyongyang is that South Korea is willing to talk, but that North Korea has to reciprocate. So far, the North Koreans have not, though.
Now, I know that the North Koreans also have their own speakers. Is there any kind of, you said they haven't, but is there any kind of sense that maybe they might reciprocate?
As of right now, all evidence points to them not reciprocating at all. As we know, that there is going to be an APEC summit that will be held in South Korea toward the end of October, beginning of November. And the new unification minister floated this really random idea a few days ago. And he said that although North Korea is not an APEC member state, we should be able to invite North Korea as an observing state to the NATO summit. I'm sorry, to the APEC summit, so the North Korea and South Korea can actually try to hash things out and have a negotiation. Kim Yo-jong, the North Korean leader's sister, said that this was a joke, that this was completely laughable, and that the North Koreans were not at all going to treat South Korea as an equal partner of any sort.
Now, John, the new government has said it will crack down on activists who send balloons with anti-Pyongyang leaflets into the north. What other measures have been tried?
Well, there was a threat where the Seoul said that they would take steps against the activists, but so far they have not. Instead, they had a meeting of sorts where they met with the activists, and they seem to have persuaded the activists to desist sending balloons to the north. And so far, most of them have. And because most of them have done so, they have not been so much of a problem. And also, another step that has been taken is not from the central government itself, but from the provincial governments. The provincial governments have also ramped up a lot of domestic ordinances that prevent the activists from actually sending the balloons up north as well, saying that this is not so much as a freedom of speech issue, but rather it's more like a defense of private property sort of issue.
Now, John, has there been any response from North Korea, and are they even paying attention to the change in approach?
Well, so far, the North Koreans have not sent balloons down to the south, but that's not been from the beginning of this administration, but rather when we saw the martial law attempt that was started by the Yoon administration last year. That's when the North Koreans started to stop all of this, because it seemed like they were trying to see what was actually going on in South Korea as well. And since then, they've not actually ramped up their propaganda efforts against the South either. But so far, there seems to be somewhat of a cold peace, if you will, between the North and the South.
Now, if I may change tack a little bit and touch on Yoon Suk Yeol. Now, again, he's refused to be questioned over his martial law declaration. What tactics has he been using?
Well, he has been very uncooperative. Yes, he's been detained since July, for the second time, mind you. And because he's under detainment, it should be easier for the prosecutors to summon him to answer questions. But so far, he has not done so. And the most recent tactic that the former president has attempted was to actually strip, literally. He removed his prison garb while in his cell and dressed only in his underwear. Thankfully, we were not told what kind of underwear that it was. But dressed only in his underwear, he refused to come out of his cell. So, although he's in his cell, the prosecutors and the police cannot forcibly remove him from his cell and bring him in for questioning unless a judge okays it. So, this is where we are right now. So, the reason why the former president, is using this kind of approach is that when he was impeached back in April, that was still under the constitutional court. There was a political trial, not a criminal trial. But now that he's completely been removed from office, all the questioning and all the trials that he faces right now are criminal trials, which are easily provable. Already, we've seen contradictory eyewitness testimonies that would actually put some of these people charged with perjury, and that alone carries a lot of fines. Other charges would actually see the former president behind bars for life. And so, because of all of these investigations and trials that are ramping up, the former president is really trying to block everything as much as he possibly can at the moment.
You mentioned underwear there. Now, why is he resorting to this type of behavior and is so resistant to being held accountable?
Well, it seems that he's trying to reach out to his base as much as possible. He does have a base group of supporters still out there, and his message appears to be, I would rather put myself through this humiliation than to actually go through the humiliation of being questioned. I'm being politically persecuted. Now, there's a very low chance that this man still has a political future, but he still seems to think that by resorting to these kind of tactics, he can rile up his base. And personally, I think it's a fool's errand at this point.
Now, lastly, John, where is the criminal investigation up to and how much longer does it have to go?
This criminal trial is going to last for a long time. The criminal trial only began in April after the Constitutional Court formally removed him from office. And there are so many witnesses that they have to go through. There's so many documents they have to go through. And it's not just about abuse of power. It's not just about the martial law. It's also about all the different other kinds of abuses and the different kinds of allegations of corruption that he faced during his first 2.5 years in office. And because there's so many things to go through, some analysts are expecting this trial to at least last maybe 1 year at the least, or maybe even 2-3 years.
John Lee, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.